Renari stood inside the landing chamber, her silver eyes calm and focused. She was a Valerian alien race known for being perfect workers. Valari did not smile. Valari did not laugh. They followed logic, order, and silence. This was her first assignment on Earth. Her mission was simple: work as a maid in a human home, observe human culture, and return with a report. She had cleaned ships, prepared meals for royalty, and served diplomats from 7 planets. Now she was going to work. In a human house, the ship door opened. Warm sunlight touched her smooth skin, which shimmered like glass. Earth was noisy and colorful, full of smells and life. It was very different from the cold halls of Valari ships. A human man stood in front of her house assignment. He had short gray hair and kind eyes. "Welcome to Earth," he said, extending his hand. "Commander David Holt, you must be Renari." Renari nodded. "Yes, Commander. I will serve you with full efficiency." David laughed softly. "Need to be so formal? Just call me David." She followed him into the house. It was simple, clean, and full of strange things: photos on the walls, small glowing lights, and a dog that barked at her before sniffing her boots. "This is Max," David said. "He's loud but friendly." Renari had read about dogs. They were emotional creatures, loyal to their humans. She was unsure how to interact, so she stayed still. Max licked her hand. "I don't mind if you observe," David said. "Here to learn, right?" "Yes," she replied. "I am here to understand human ways, especially your emotional systems." David raised an eyebrow. "Well, emotions are complicated. You'll figure them out over time." That evening, something unexpected happened. David's friends came over, an older woman named Clara and a man named Louis. They all sat at a table full of food. Renari watched from the kitchen, curious. They laughed loudly, shared stories, and even argued about who made the best chili. Then Clara spoke about her late husband. Her voice shook. She missed him deeply. David reached over and held her hand. Louis poured her more tea. No one told her to stop crying. Renari stood silently, her head full of questions. In Valari culture, such emotion would be punished. But here it was accepted. It was shared later. As Renari cleaned the table, David walked over. "What did you think?" he asked. "It was loud," she said honestly, "and confusing. You showed joy, sadness, and care in 1 hour. Valari, do not do this." David smiled. "That's part of being human." The next morning, Renari began her work. She cleaned, cooked, and organized with perfect precision. But David stopped her when she tried to throw away an old, broken mug. "That mug has a memory," he said. "My daughter painted it when she was 5. It is cracked," Renari said. "I know, but it's important to me." She stared at the mug again. A broken object, with emotional value. Strange. Later, she cooked her first human meal. She followed every recipe exactly. The food looked perfect, but David made a face after the first bite. "It's too exact," he said. "Food should have heart. Try cooking like this." He tossed spices into a pan without measuring. Renari watched carefully. It was messy. Was unscientific. But when she tasted the result, it was better. Not just in flavor, something else. Something warm. "Why is it better?" she asked. "Because I made it with love," David said. Renari tilted her head. "Is love a spice?" David laughed. "No, it's a feeling." She wrote in her digital notebook that night. Day 1 on Earth. Humans express emotions openly. They cry, they hug, they cook with feelings. I do not understand it yet. But it is interesting. On the 3rd day, something went wrong. A cleaning. Droid malfunctioned. It spun out of control in the living room, knocking over chairs and chasing Max. The dog yelped and ran into a corner. Renari did not think. She stepped in front of Max and shut down the droid manually, burning her hand slightly in the process. David rushed in. "Renari, are you okay?" "My hand is damaged," she said calmly. But David did not care about the droid or the floor. He took her hand gently, applied ice, and thanked her. Max licked her again. "You saved him," David said. "Thank you." Renari felt ... something. It was not pain. It was not pride. It was something in her chest, soft and heavy. Later that night, David came to her room. "I want to thank you again," he said. "You're more than just a worker. You're part of this home now." "Part of the home?" she asked. "Yes, you belong here." She had never heard those words before. On Viller, she belonged to no one. She was a tool, a servant. Here she was something more. That night, Renari did not power down. She sat by the window, looking at the stars. "Day 3 on Earth," she typed. "Today I felt something new. I was thanked, hugged, and accepted." Humans do not only speak with words, they speak with touch, with eyes, with care. Is this the intimacy I was told about? If so, ... I want to learn more. The stars above were cold and distant, but inside this small Earth, home, Renari felt a warmth she had never known, and she wanted to feel it again. Renari woke up early, just before the sun rose. She did not need sleep like humans, but she liked watching the sunrise through the window. The sky changed colors, orange, pink, gold. It was peaceful, and she found peace ... comforting. She made breakfast for David, eggs, toast, and tea. This time, she didn't follow the exact formula. She added a little more butter, just like David liked. She even cut the toast in triangles because he said it reminded him of his childhood. "Wow," David said when he tasted the food. "This is perfect, Renari. Tastes like home. Tastes ... like home," she repeated. "Yeah," he smiled. "It feels warm, familiar, like someone cares." That word again, care. It was not in any Volari training manual, but humans used it often. Renari decided to study it more after breakfast. She followed David outside. He was fixing a solar panel on the roof while Max barked below. Renari watched from the ground. "You should wear a safety belt," she said. "I'll be fine," David laughed. "I've done this for years." But then he slipped. David, Renari shouted, activating her hover boots. She caught him just before he hit the ground. Her arms shook slightly from the weight, but she held him tight. "You okay?" she asked. David blinked. "Yeah. ... Thanks to you." Max ran over, barking and jumping. "That was impressive," David said. "You're always watching out for us." "It is my duty," she replied. "No," he said. "It's more than duty. You care." That word again. Later that day, Renari walked through the town market with David. He wanted to buy fresh fruit. She followed silently, observing everything. People laughed. They shared stories. They helped each other carry bags. Some even danced to music on the corner. Then, a small boy dropped his ice cream and started crying. His mother bent down, wiped his tears, and hugged him. The boy stopped crying and smiled. Renari's hand touched her chest again. That warm, heavy feeling returned. Humans comfort each other in pain, she noted. David looked at her. "Yeah, we try. Life's hard sometimes. That's why we stick together. On Velar, we do not comfort. We fix problems, not feelings." "Well," David said, "feelings are part of the problem, but also part of the solution." Looked at the boy again. The mother gave him a new ice cream cone. He laughed. Problem solved, emotionally. That evening, Clara and Louis visited again. Renari served tea and sat nearby, quietly listening. They played an old Earth game called Cards. Clara explained the rules to Renari. She listened carefully and won 2 games in a row. "You're a quick learner." Clara smiled. "I remember all card patterns," Renari said. "My brain is trained for detail, but do you enjoy it?" Louis asked. "Enjoy, yes? Do you like playing?" Renari paused. She looked at the cards, at their smiling faces, at the laughter around the table. "Yes," she said slowly. "I think ... I do." David gave her a proud nod. That night, David showed her how to cook a special Earth dish. Lasagna. It was messy. There were layers, sauces, and so many steps. "You don't need to follow it exactly," he said. "Just feel it. Feel it." Like imagine you're making it for someone you love. Renari stared at the dish. I don't understand love. David smiled gently. That's okay. Maybe just imagine you want them to be happy. She nodded and worked carefully. When they ate it, David's eyes widened. Best lasagna I've had in years, he said, Renari. Felt... proud. Later, she stood by the window again. The stars looked the same as before. But Earth felt different now. It was no longer just a mission. She opened her notebook. Day 5 on Earth. I saved David today. I watched a mother comfort her child. I cooked food with feelings. I played a human game and felt joy. I think I am starting to understand emotional maintenance. It is not about cleaning or repairing machines. It is about caring for people. She closed the notebook. Max came into her room and curled beside her. She let her fingers touch his soft fur. You are very emotional, Max, she whispered. The dog wagged his tail. The next morning, David looked serious. Renari, he said, I've been thinking. Do you want to stay longer than the mission? I do not understand. Well, your assignment ends in 2 weeks, but I could request an extension. I think you're learning more than the council expected, Renari thought quietly. I have. More to learn, she said. David smiled. Then we'll request it. That day, she sent a message to the Valari Council, requesting additional Earth time. Emotional systems are more complex than first believed. Continued study necessary. She did not tell them that she wanted to stay, not because of research, but because something in her heart had changed. It had been 4 weeks since Renari arrived on Earth. Every day she learned something new about humans, their emotions, their habits, their strange but beautiful way of life. She cooked meals with care. She laughed during card games. She even cried quietly when Clara shared a sad story. One morning, a message arrived from the Valari High Council. Your mission is complete. Return home immediately. Renari stood still for a long moment. The words on the screen were cold and clear, just like everything on Valar. David noticed the silence. Is everything okay? My mission is over, she said softly. I must return to Velar. David put down his mug. Oh, that's soon. I leave in 48 hours. The house felt quiet after that. That evening, Renari walked through the town alone. She passed the market, the bakery, and the park where children played. She saw an old couple sitting on a bench holding hands. She didn't speak to them. Only watched. Humans aged. They got weaker. But their love and care did not fade. That feeling being connected, it stayed strong. She didn't want to leave it behind. Back at the house, David packed a small box of things for her. A photo of them with Max. A recipe book. A scarf Clara had knitted for her. These are for you, he said. So you remember Earth? She looked at the items one by one. I will remember, she whispered. Max barked softly and rubbed against her leg. You'll be missed, David said. I will miss this home too, she replied. Not just the house, but everything inside it. On the day of departure, Renari stood near the landing site. Her transport ship waited. The wind was cold, and the sky was gray. David stood beside her. You don't have to go if you don't want to, he said quietly. I have to, she answered. The council is strict. If I disobey, I may never return. David nodded. Still, I hope you find what you're looking for out there. I think I already did, she said. They stood in silence. Then she stepped onto the ship. Vela was the same as she remembered, gray, clean, perfect. The buildings were tall and quiet. The people walked in lines. No one smiled. No one hugged. Renari walked into the central office to give her report. The council head, tall Valari named Orcs, greeted her without expression. Welcome back, Renari. Report your findings. She stood tall and began. Humans are emotional. They use feelings in daily actions. They cook with love. They comfort each other. They care for animals, feel joy, sadness, anger, and kindness. Their systems are not logical, but they are strong. The council members whispered to each other. Continue, Ornox said. Humans connect through emotions. I believe it makes them more united. Their families are built not by function but by affection. This makes them unique. There was silence. Orcs finally spoke. You have brought back emotional corruption, or too close to them. I only observed, Renari replied. You felt, Orcs said sharply. Your emotions are active. Your behavior has changed. She didn't deny it. Yes, she said. I have changed. The council stared at her in shock. This is dangerous, another elder said. She must be reconditioned. Renari stood firm. No, I will not forget what I learned. Then you are no longer one of us, Orcs said coldly. You may stay, but you will never serve again. You are broken. Renari felt nothing for a moment. Then she smiled. Back in her room, Renari looked at the photo David gave her. Her own face in the picture showed something she had never seen before. A small, real smile. She missed Earth. She missed Max, Clara, Lewis, the market. The music, the messy kitchen. It's a feeling of being seen, not just as a worker but as someone who mattered. She was not homesick for Veller. She was homesick for Earth. That night, she made a choice. She sent a message to David. I do not belong here anymore. I want to return. I am requesting Earth's residency. Hope to see you again. Then she packed her things. No one stopped her. Renari stood alone at the Veller space dock, waiting for the next ship to Earth. She wore the scarf Clara had given her and held the recipe book tightly. Other Vallari stared at her, some with fear, some with confusion, some with curiosity. A small Vallari child walked up to her. Is it true that humans feel happy even when they are sad? He asked. Renari nodded gently. And that makes them strong. Ow. The child smiled. So did she. As the ship took off, Renari looked out the window. The stars were still the same, but this time her heart was full. She wasn't just returning to Earth, she was returning home. Renari stepped off the shuttle and breathed in Earth's warm air. It smelled like trees, flowers, and something fresh she could not explain. The blue sky above her seemed more beautiful than before. This time she was not a visitor on a mission. This time, she came by choice. David waited for her near the landing zone. When he saw her, his face lit up with joy. You came back, he said. I had to, Renari replied. He gave her a long look, then gently placed his hand on her shoulder. Welcome home. Max barked loudly and jumped up to her, bent down, and hugged him. She had learned that humans show care through touch, and she now enjoyed it too. Renari moved back into David's house. Nothing much had changed. The photo was still on the table. The plants were taller. There were new scratches on the floor, probably Max's doing. She unpacked her things carefully. Scarf, recipe book, her Vallari tools, and a new notebook. This time, it wasn't for reports. It was for feelings. David made tea, and they sat outside in the garden. So what now? He asked. I want to understand humans more, she said. Deeper. Not just what they do, but why they do it. David smiled. You sure you're ready for that? Yes, she said softly. I feel ready. The next day, Renari started her new plan. She would observe human emotions in different ways. She went to a small school and watched children draw pictures. One boy drew his family with big smiles. Another drew a rocket and said he wanted to become an astronaut. Why do you draw? She asked one girl. The girl shrugged. Because it makes me happy. Happy from drawing? That was strange to Renari. Vallari only drew maps or technical diagrams. But this girl drew cats and rainbows and pizza. Renari tried drawing too. Her first sketch was a small house with 4 people and a dog. David saw it later. Is that us? He asked. She nodded. He smiled. You're learning fast. Next, Renari visited the town library. She read books, not science books, but stories. Love stories. Adventure stories. Some were sad. Some were hopeful. She read one book about a girl who lost her parents, but found a new family with kind strangers. When she closed the book, she realized her eyes were wet tears. She wiped them slowly and whispered, I understand now. In the evenings, David and Renari sat together and talked. You ask a lot more questions now. David joked. I want to know everything, she replied. Why do people fall in love? Why did they get married? Why did they cry during music? David chuckled. Those are big questions. Do you have answers? Some. But every person feels differently. She wrote that down in her notebook. Humans are not the same. Their emotions are personal. One weekend, they went to a wedding. It was in a garden full of flowers. People wore bright clothes. They danced and hugged and laughed. The bride cried while saying her vows. The groom held her hands and whispered words only she could hear. Renari watched every second. The emotions were everywhere. Joy, nervousness, love, hope. After the wedding, she asked David, why do humans marry? He thought for a moment. Because they choose to walk through life together. It's not just about love. It's about commitment, support, and sharing all the hard and happy parts. Even pain. Especially pain. That night, Renari wrote, intimacy is not only touch. It is trust, care, and shared life. One day, while she was cooking lasagna again, she burned the top layer. It smelled bad. David entered and laughed. It's like Earth's cooking finally defeated you. I failed, she said, frowning. But David shook his head. No, you just made a mistake. That's human too. Even failure is part of humanity. Yes, he said. Try. We mess up, and we try again. She smiled. Then I am very human today. They laughed together as the weeks passed. People in town began to know Renari better. Children waved at her. The bakery lady gave her free cookies. Clara invited her to tea often. She no longer felt like an outsider. One evening, Clara looked at her with warm eyes. You've changed, Renari. You're not just learning to be human, you're becoming one. That night, Renari stared at the stars again. She used to think they were cold. Far and silent now, they looked like lights from old friends. Then came a message from the Valari Council. You have ignored our orders. You are living among humans without permission. Turn now or face exile. Renari read the message 3 times. Her hands shook slightly. David came in and saw her face. They found out she said quietly, What will you do? He asked. Renari looked at the photo on the table at Max, sleeping near the fireplace, and at her notebook full of feelings. She knew the answer. I will stay. David nodded slowly. Then you won't be alone. Renari sat in the small living room, the Valari Council's message still glowing on her tablet. Her eyes stared at the cold words, return immediately or face exile. Her heart was heavy. She had not expected this. She had thought the council might be angry, but not this serious. David noticed the tension in her face. What's wrong, Renari? She handed him the tablet. The council wants me to return. If I do not, they will exile me. David's eyes widened. Exile? From your own people? Yes, she whispered. I am no longer one of them. I have ... changed. David sat beside her. You've learned to care, to love, to be part of something bigger than your mission. You've become human, Renari. I did not mean to. I only wanted to understand, she said. He took her hand gently. And you did. But now it's up to you. Do you want to go back to Velor where everything is safe and controlled? Or do you want to stay here, where you've built a life, where you're not just a servant, but a person? Renari felt the weight of his words. She looked around at the house David's home. Max was curled up near the fireplace Clara had sent. Over fresh flowers that afternoon, and the kitchen smelled of bread baking. She thought of the laughter, the emotions, the connections she had made with these humans. Could she really leave all of this behind? That night, Renari stood by the window, watching the stars. They used to feel so distant, so cold. Felt familiar. The stars above Earth were no different from the ones above Velor, yet they felt different now. She could almost feel them looking back at her. The stars weren't the problem. The problem was her people, the Valari. They wanted order, logic, control. They did not understand emotions the way humans did. But Renari knew now that emotions were what made life rich and beautiful. They were messy, unpredictable, but also what made people strong. The next morning, Renari made a decision. She couldn't go back to Vila. She had learned too much about human warmth, care, and love. She had become a part of something bigger than herself, and she wasn't ready to leave it behind. She went to David's room. "David," she said, her voice steady, "I cannot return to Vila." David looked up, surprised but not shocked. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Renari said. "I choose to stay here. I choose to be human." David smiled softly. "They will fight for you. You don't have to face this alone." Renari smiled too. "I know. I've never been alone since I met you." Max, sensing the change in mood, trotted over to Renari and licked her hand. Renari sent a message to the Valari Council, her hands trembling only slightly. As she typed, "I refuse to return. I choose Earth. I choose humanity. I am no longer Valari." She clicked send and waited. It felt like a weight was lifted from her chest, but also like a great storm was coming. She didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time, she was not afraid. 2 days later, the Valari Council responded. "You have been warned. Your actions will have consequences. Prepare for exile." Renari knew they would not back down. The Valari were strict and unyielding. But that was a life she no longer wanted. She was not a tool, not just a servant. She was something more. She was a person with feelings, with a life of her own. David stood beside her when she read the message aloud. "They don't understand. Renari, but you've come this far. You've made your choice." "I stand by you. I don't want to leave," Renari whispered. "I also don't want to go back to a life without love, without active connection." David squeezed her hand. "Then you won't have to. We'll fight for you, Renara. We'll show them that you belong here." The next day, David and Renari went to the local courthouse. They met with a lawyer who was known for handling unusual cases. "I've never had an alien case before," the lawyer said. "But if you're serious about staying, we can try." Renari explained everything: how she had come to Earth as a maid, how she had learned human emotions, and how she now felt more at home with humans than with her own kind. The lawyer nodded thoughtfully. "This is going to be difficult, but not impossible. The Valari are known for their strict laws. But if we can prove that you have integrated into human society, we might be able to keep you here." Renari felt a glimmer of hope. "I am ready to do whatever it takes." David smiled at her. "You've already done it, Renari. You've already built a life here. All we need to do now is show the world what you've become." Days passed. The court case moved slowly, but Renari remained calm. She spent time with David and Clara, learning more about human life and the little things that made it special, like the way people smiled at each other, the way they shared stories, and how they cared for one another when times were tough. She began to help David even more with small tasks around the house. She learned how to fix things without using any Valari technology, and how to plant flowers in the garden with Clara's help. One evening, as they worked together in the garden, David looked up at the sky. "I've never seen you this at peace, Renari." "I am at peace here," she said, her voice soft. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I belong." David smiled. "Then we'll make sure you stay here, no matter what." Renari nodded. "I hope so. I hope I am human enough to stay." The court case would take time, but for now, Renari had everything she needed. She had a family, friends, a home, and a place where she could be herself. She didn't need to be Valari anymore. She had found something better, a place where emotions, love, and care were more important than rules and logic. She was ready for whatever came next. The court case continued for weeks. Renari had become a part of the community, and every day more people showed up to support her. David, Clara, and even the children from the local school came to the courthouse. The town had begun to see Renari, not as an alien, but as someone who had become truly human. The Valari Council, however, remained unyielding. They saw her decision as a betrayal. The message they sent was clear. If she did not return, she would be exiled from her home planet. Forever, but Renari didn't fear exile anymore. She had something she had never had before, a place where she belonged, a home. One afternoon, as Renari and David sat in the garden, watching Max chase after a butterfly, Renari turned to him. "David, I've been thinking," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "About what it means to truly belong," she said, her voice soft. "When I first came here, I didn't understand humans. I thought your emotions were ... illogical. But now I understand. I understand that love, kindness, and care make you who you are. They are not weaknesses, but strengths. And I've learned that I need them to live." David smiled and put his arm around her. "You've come a long way, Renari. I'm proud of you," she smiled back. "I've learned a lot from you, and from Max, and from everyone here." The court case finally reached its conclusion. Renari, David, and their lawyer stood before the judge, who had heard all the evidence and testimonies. People from the town had spoken about Renari's kindness, her work ethic, and how she had integrated into human society. Renari stood tall, her heart steady. She had no fear of the future anymore. Her life was here, with these people who had accepted her for who she was. The judge cleared his throat. After reviewing the case, it is clear that Renari has formed strong emotional bonds with the human community. The law is clear. She has the right to remain here. Her choice to stay on Earth is valid. Renari's heart skipped a beat. David's hand squeezed hers in support. The judge continued. "Therefore, Renari will be allowed to remain on Earth as a legal citizen. She will no longer be bound by the laws of the Valari Council." Renari looked at David, her eyes filled. With joy and relief, she had one. She was free. The next few days were a blur of celebrations. The entire town gathered at the park for a party in Renari's honor. There was music, dancing, and food, so much food. Clara made her famous apple pie, and David grilled steaks, while the children played games and ran around the park. Renari couldn't remember the last time she had felt so much joy. Laughter echoed around her, and she felt a warmth in her chest. It was the warmth she had been searching for when she first arrived on Earth, and now it was here. It was real. She looked around at all the smiling faces: David, Clara, Louis, the children, the neighbors. These were the people who had welcomed her, who had shown her how to live with love, how to feel the beauty of human emotions. As the sun began to set, David pulled her aside. "Renari," he said, his voice serious, "I've been thinking about." "Something what?" she asked. He took her hand. "Now that everything is settled, I want you to know. You're not just someone I work with. You're not just my housemate, not just a visitor. You're part of my family. Belong here with me. I want you to stay here, always." Tears filled Renari's eyes as she looked at David. She had never imagined this kind of life when she first arrived. The warmth, the care, the acceptance. She had learned to love, to laugh, to cry, and now she had a place to call her own. "I want that too," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I want to stay with you, with all of you." David smiled and kissed her forehead gently. "Then you will, Renari. You're home now." Weeks passed, and life continued. Renari found her place in the community more and more each day. She helped David with small repairs around the house, and she even started her own gardening project, planting flowers and vegetables in the backyard. People in the town often stopped by to visit her, asking for advice on plants or just to talk. She became a local fixture. The humans who once saw her as an alien now saw her as a friend, a neighbor, a sister. One afternoon, Clara came over with a box of old clothes she no longer needed. "I thought you might like these," she said. Handing the box to Renari, Renari looked through the clothes and picked out a soft green sweater. "It's beautiful," she said, holding it up to her chest. "It's yours now," Clara said with a smile. "Just like you're part of this town." Renari smiled back, feeling a deep sense of belonging that evening. David and Renari stood together in the kitchen, preparing dinner. The house smelled of fresh bread and herbs. Max was lying at their feet, content and quiet. Renari looked around the room, at the food they had prepared, at the love that filled the house. She felt at peace. She had a home. She had family. And most importantly, She had a place where she was free to be herself, where emotions and love were not weaknesses, but strengths. As she set the table, she wrote in her notebook, "I have learned that love is not a weakness, is what makes us strong. Here, I have found my home. I am no longer an outsider. I am human, just like them." As she finished writing, David came over and took her hand. "Ready for dinner?" he asked. Renari smiled, her heart full. "Yes, I'm ready." And as they sat down to eat, surrounded by the people she loved, Renari knew she had made the right choice. Oh, she was home now, forever.